A single dad janitor was forced out of first class until the pilot spotted the seal tattoo and froze. You never know who's sitting next to you on a plane. Sometimes, the quietest man in the corner carries the loudest stories, ones written not in ink, but in scars, silence, and sacrifice. The morning flight from Dallas to New York was packed. Businessmen in crisp suits, influencers with oversized sunglasses, and families juggling toddlers and tablets crowded the boarding gate. Among them stood Ethan Cole, a single dad wearing an old leather jacket, his work boots scuffed, his hands calloused, holding a small backpack and his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. They looked out of place, and that was putting it kindly. Lily clutched a worn-out teddy bear, her eyes wide with excitement. "Daddy, are we really flying in first class?" she asked, her voice soft but hopeful. Ethan smiled. "Just this once, sweetheart. A friend used his miles to help us. You deserve to see the clouds from the big seats." He didn't mention that he'd taken on double janitor shifts at the school just to afford the rest of the trip, or that this flight was to attend the funeral of an old Navy brother who'd saved his life overseas. He didn't need to say it. The weight in his eyes told enough. As they boarded, a flight attendant glanced at Ethan's ticket, then at his faded jacket. Her polished smile wavered. "Sir, are you sure you're in the right section? This is first class." Ethan nodded, handing over the tickets. "Yes, ma'am." But whispers began before they even reached their seats. "Probably an upgrade mistake," someone muttered. "Look at his clothes, he doesn't belong here. Must be using someone else's pass." Ethan felt the heat rise in his face, but he ignored it. He'd been through worse battlefields, loss, nights alone cleaning hallways while his daughter slept in the janitor's office. A few blares wouldn't break him. He helped Lily settle into her seat, showing her how to buckle up. She giggled, tapping the window. "Daddy, look. The planes look like toys." He smiled, his rough hand brushing her hair. That small joy was worth it all. But moments later, a tall man in a sharp navy suit approached. His badge read Mr. Harlan, flight manager. "Sir," Harlan said stiffly, "there's been a seating issue. You and your daughter will need to move to economy." Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. These are our seats." The attendant beside him whispered something, glancing at his jacket again. "Sir," Harlan repeated, louder now, "please don't make this difficult. You can't stay in first class." The passengers nearby smirked, whispering again, some recording on their phones. Ethan's daughter clutched his arm, frightened. "Daddy, did we do something wrong?" she whispered. He swallowed hard. Every muscle in his body told him to stay calm. He'd promised himself no anger, no outbursts, no fights in front of Lily. "No, sweetheart," he said softly. "We're fine." He stood slowly, his voice even. "We'll move." As he reached up to grab the bag from the overhead bin, his sleeve lifted, revealing a faded tattoo on his forearm. A trident, inked deep and surrounded by initials. The mark of a Navy SEAL. The flight attendant gasped quietly, but before anyone could say a word, a voice came from the cockpit. "Wait." Everyone turned. The pilot had stepped out. His uniform crisp, eyes sharp, the silver wings on his chest gleaming. But the moment his gaze landed on Ethan, he froze. "Cole," the pilot whispered, disbelief in his voice. "Ethan Cole?" Ethan turned, confused. Then recognition flickered in his eyes. "Captain Reeves?" The pilot nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "My God. I thought you were gone." Silence filled the cabin. The passengers who had laughed seconds ago now stared, bewildered. Reeves stepped forward, gripping Ethan's shoulder. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man doesn't belong in economy. He belongs in history books." Murmurs rippled across the seats. Reeves continued, his voice thick with emotion. "This man saved my life in Fallujah. When our convoy was ambushed, he ran back through fire to pull me out. He carried me half a mile under heavy fire. He refused evacuation until every man was accounted for. We called him Iron Shadow because no one ever saw him coming until it was too late for the enemy." The attendants froze. The passengers who'd mocked him sank in their seats. Reeves turned to Harlan. "Mr. Harlan, if anyone deserves to sit in first class, it's this man and his daughter. And if there's an issue, I'll gladly fly this plane standing. No one spoke. Ethan tried to protest, shaking his head. Reeves, please. I'm just a janitor now. That was a long time ago. Reeves smiled faintly. Once a SEAL, always a SEAL, brother. You've already earned this seat 100 times over. Lily looked up at her dad, her small hand gripping his. Daddy, you were a hero? He knelt down beside her. No, sweetheart. I just did what I had to do for my friends. But the whole cabin heard it, and they knew the truth. As the plane took off, the same passengers who had sneered now watched in silence, respect replacing judgment. The attendant returned with tears in her eyes, offering Lily a warm cookie and a little set of wings. Hours later, as the sun sank into clouds, Reeves came to sit beside Ethan for a while. They talked quietly about the past, the friends they lost, and how time changes men but never their hearts. Before landing, Reeves spoke into the intercom. Folks, before we touch down, I'd like to recognize someone on board. Not as a janitor. Not as a passenger. But as a man who's carried this nation on his shoulders. Chief Petty Officer Ethan Cole, thank you for your service. Applause erupted through the plane. Lily looked around, eyes shining, clapping with all her little strength. Ethan's eyes glistened, his head bowed. As they stepped off the plane, Reeves handed Ethan a small envelope. A few of us still owe you, brother. Use this for Lily's future. Inside was a scholarship fund signed by several of Ethan's old teammates. Ethan couldn't speak. He just hugged his old friend, two men bound not by uniform, but by loyalty and love. That night, in a quiet motel room, Lily slept curled against her father's chest, her tiny hand over the tattoo that once made the world stare. Ethan whispered to the darkness, maybe some things never fade, huh? The truth is, heroes don't always wear medals or uniforms. Sometimes, they sweep floors, raise daughters alone, and carry the weight of stories they never tell. And if you believe that true heroes still walk among us, unseen but unforgotten, hit that like button, subscribe, and share Ethan's story. Because maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to be reminded that quiet strength still exists, and that dignity, no matter how it's dressed, always deserves a seat in first class.